My family forgot me when I had nothing. When I won the lottery, they suddenly remembered I existed. They called it family money and demanded their share. I stood my ground and reminded them who they had left behind. Now they are begging for forgiveness. What would you do if the people who forgot you when you had nothing came crawling back the moment you had everything? My name is Vesper Lane. I grew up in a family of five: my parents, Dorian and Celine Marrow, my older brother Evander, my younger sister Lyric, and me. Our home looked picture perfect from the outside. Big white house with blue shutters, a well-manicured lawn, holiday cards with smiling faces sent to distant relatives every December. But behind closed doors there was a hierarchy you learned early and never questioned. Dorian Marrow, my father, was a man who valued image above all else. Tall, with a commanding voice and steely blue eyes, he walked through life like he was always on a stage, playing the role of the good family man. He loved telling stories at dinner parties about Evander's football trophies, about Lyric's art awards. He rarely remembered my accomplishments, and if he did, it was only to contrast them against my siblings. Celine Marrow, my mother, was the puppet master behind the scenes. She was beautiful, polished, the kind of woman who knew exactly which shade of lipstick to wear for every occasion. She believed in tough love, except the love part never quite reached me. She praised Evander's resilience and Lyric's charm, but viewed my quietness as a flaw to correct, not a trait to nurture. Evander was every parent's dream in their eyes. Captain of the football team, prom king, early acceptance into a prestigious university. If he failed, it was the teacher's fault. The referee's bad call, the weather that day. He could do no wrong. He wore his entitlement like a second skin. Lyric, the baby of the family, was all glitter and laughter. She knew exactly how to tilt her head, how to pout at just the right moment to get out of trouble. Even when she crashed my mom's car or got caught sneaking out, it was seen as kids being kids. And then there was me, the one who colored inside the lines, who asked before taking, who stayed up late studying while they slept, the one who never quite fit the family mold. I was introverted, bookish, more comfortable in the quiet corners of life than under bright spotlights. I preferred jeans and sneakers to makeup and designer clothes. I did not know how to charm a room or sweet-talk my way out of trouble. I thought honesty and hard work would be enough. In the Marrow household, though, it was not the substance that mattered. It was the performance. Evander and Lyric were naturally outgoing, effortlessly magnetic. They were polished where I was plain, noisy where I was careful. They knew how to flatter and charm our parents in ways that I never could or even wanted to. They were mirrors reflecting back the image my parents wanted the world to see. I, on the other hand, was a crack in the glass, an imperfection to be overlooked. Growing up, the favoritism was not always loud. It was subtle, calculated, like how they celebrated Evander's mediocre victories with family dinners and expensive gifts, while my hard-earned wins got a passing nod, or how Lyric's mistakes were cute stories to tell at Thanksgiving, while my smallest errors became serious concerns that needed addressing. Once, in sixth grade, I won first place in a regional spelling bee. I came home beaming, clutching my small golden trophy. My mother smiled thinly and said, "That's nice, dear. But real success isn't about spelling words. It's about making an impression." The trophy gathered dust on the shelf until one day it disappeared altogether. No one noticed. Or if they did, no one said a word. When Evander forgot my 15th birthday, something even Lyric managed to remember, my parents laughed it off. "He's busy, Ves. Big responsibilities." But when I missed Lyric's school recital because I had the flu, it became a family scandal. "Family comes first, Vesper," my father said coldly, while Celine avoided looking me in the eye. Every time I tried to be louder, tried to be better, tried to be enough, I was met with that same invisible wall. That wall of polite smiles, of nods that said good effort, but not quite. No matter how high I jumped, how bright I tried to shine, in the Marrow household the light was reserved for others. For those they had already decided were worthy. By the time I hit my teenage years, I stopped trying to be seen. I learned to exist in the shadows, where the hurt was quieter, and hope hurt less. But the damage was already done. I grew into a teenager who flinched at compliments, certain they were jokes. I second-guessed every decision, every word out of my mouth, terrified of being not enough again. I developed the habit of apologizing for things that were not my fault, bumping into a chair, asking a question in class. I thought honesty and hard work would be enough. In the Marrow household, though, it was not the substance that mattered. It was the performance. Evander and Lyric were naturally outgoing, effortlessly magnetic. They were polished where I was plain, noisy where I was careful. They knew how to flatter and charm our parents in ways that I never could or even wanted to. They were mirrors reflecting back the image my parents wanted the world to see. I, on the other hand, was a crack in the glass, an imperfection to be overlooked. Growing up, the favoritism was not always loud. It was subtle, calculated, like how they celebrated Evander's mediocre victories with family dinners and expensive gifts, while my hard-earned wins got a passing nod, or how Lyric's mistakes were cute stories to tell at Thanksgiving, while my smallest errors became serious concerns that needed addressing. Once, in 6th grade, I won first place in a regional spelling bee. I came home beaming, clutching my small golden trophy. My mother smiled thinly and said, "That's nice, dear. But real success isn't about spelling words. It's about making an impression." The trophy gathered dust on the shelf until one day it disappeared altogether. No one noticed. Or if they did, no one said a word. When Evander forgot my 15th birthday, something even Lyric managed to remember, my parents laughed it off. "He's busy, Ves. Big responsibilities." But when I missed Lyric's school recital because I had the flu, it became a family scandal. "Family comes first, Vesper," my father said coldly, while Celine avoided looking me in the eye. Every time I tried to be louder, tried to be better, tried to be enough, I was met with that same invisible wall. That wall of polite smiles, of nods that said good effort, but not quite. No matter how high I jumped, how bright I tried to shine, in the Marrow household the light was reserved for others. For those they had already decided were worthy. By the time I hit my teenage years, I stopped trying to be seen. I learned to exist in the shadows, where the hurt was quieter, and hope hurt less. But the damage was already done. I grew into a teenager who flinched at compliments. Certain they were jokes. I second-guessed every decision, every word out of my mouth, terrified of being not enough again. I developed the habit of apologizing for things that were not my fault, bumping into a chair, asking a question in class, even breathing too loudly in a room full of people who made me feel like space itself was a favor I was borrowing. At night, I would lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, wondering what invisible rule I had broken that day, wondering why loving them felt like trying to hold smoke in my hands. Over time, I stopped asking why. I just accepted it as fact. I was the problem. I was the one who didn't fit. I was the one who had to keep proving I deserved to stay. It chipped away at something inside me, something fragile and necessary. By the time high school ended, I was a shadow of myself, quiet, careful, constantly shrinking so I would not take up more space than I was allowed. I did not know then how long it would take to unlearn that kind of invisibility. A few months ago, my family planned a big overseas trip. Greece, Italy, France. It looked amazing. I found out by accident, scrolling through Lyric's Instagram stories late one night, feeling my heart drop lower with each photo. There they were, laughing, posing in front of the Parthenon, sipping wine on cobblestone streets. The captions were full of inside jokes, references I was never part of. Not a text, not a call, not even a half-hearted "wish you were here." For a moment I just stared at the screen, wondering if somehow they had told me and I had forgotten. Maybe I missed an email? A voicemail? But there was nothing. They had gone together and simply left me out like I was a stranger, not a daughter, not a sister. I waited a few days, trying to summon the courage to ask. When I finally called my mom, trying to keep the tremble out of my voice, she sounded surprised. "Oh, Vess," she said lightly. "We didn't think you'd want to come. You're always so busy. And besides, we were tight on budget." I wanted to scream, to ask how they could afford flights, hotels, shopping sprees if money was so tight, but all I managed was a hollow, "Right, of course." "Don't make a big deal out of it," she added with a laugh, brushing it off like a speck of dust. "We'll plan something with you next time." I swallowed the hurt like I always did, smiled, nodded, said, "It's fine." But it was not fine. When I left for college, moving several hours away, it was supposed to be a fresh start. A clean slate where maybe, just maybe, I would find a version of myself that did not feel like a disappointment. I juggled classes and part-time jobs, built a quiet little life of my own, far from their voices, their judgments. I thought distance would dull the hurt. It did not. Later that night, sitting in my tiny off-campus apartment, I scrolled through the pictures again, each smiling face on that vacation, another tiny fracture inside my chest. I had not even known they had been planning a trip. No phone call to check my schedule. No message to say, hey, would you want to come? Just silence, just absence, just proof that out of sight really did mean out of mind. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they thought I was too busy with school. Maybe they thought they were sparing me the distraction. But deep down, I knew better. They had planned their perfect family trip, and the idea of squeezing me into the picture had simply never crossed their minds. Memories of missed birthdays, overlooked achievements, and polite indifference piled up inside me until it felt like I could not breathe. It had never been about schedules. It had never been about money. It had always been about choice. They chose not to include me. The next day, I confronted them in the family group chat. I typed out carefully measured words. It hurt to see you all on vacation without even telling me. I wish you had at least asked. Silence for hours. Then Lyric replied, you're so sensitive. We thought you'd be happier doing your own thing. Evander chimed in. Stop making drama where there isn't any. Finally, my mother. You need to let things go, Vesper. Families grow apart sometimes. And there it was, laid out plain. I was not a forgotten invitation. I was an inconvenience they had left behind without a second thought. Fast forward to about a month later. It was a gray, rainy Tuesday, and I was sitting alone at a small coffee shop near campus, cradling a lukewarm cup of coffee and pretending to study. My head hurt from stress, from deadlines, from life. That was when a boy, maybe 10 years old, came in, soaked from the rain. His jacket was too big for him, and he clutched a handful of lottery tickets in one hand and a soggy cardboard box in the other. He went table to table, politely asking if anyone wanted to buy one. Most people waved him off without looking up. When he reached me, I almost said no too, almost, but something in his wide, earnest eyes made me pause. I dug a few crumpled bills from my wallet and handed them over, taking the ticket without even checking the numbers. He smiled so big it made my chest ache. Good luck, miss, he chirped before running back out into the rain. I stuffed the ticket into my bag and forgot about it for 2 days. When I finally remembered, it was late at night. I was sitting on my kitchen floor, surrounded by textbooks and dirty dishes. Too tired to think. I found the ticket wedged between my laptop and a pile of papers. I almost tossed it aside, but on a whim, I pulled up the lottery website and typed in the numbers. And there it was. Winner! All 6 numbers. Over $2 million. For a long moment, I just sat there, staring at the screen. My mind blank. My heart hammering so loud I could barely hear my own breathing. Then it hit me all at once. Laughter, tears, disbelief crashing over me in waves. I laughed until I cried. I cried until I could not breathe. Joy, fear, freedom, all tangled together. I had spent my whole life tiptoeing around other people's expectations. Always the afterthought, the extra. And now, for the first time, I had something that was entirely unquestionably mine. I did not go crazy with it. No designer bags or lavish vacations. I moved with caution, almost superstition. I hired a financial advisor, paid off my lingering student loans and the small mortgage I had taken on when I thought I would be trapped in that crumbling apartment forever. I invested wisely, tucked money away for emergencies. But slowly, quietly, life began to change in ways I had never dared to imagine before. I allowed myself small luxuries, quiet ones. A new car. A simple but solid silver SUV that smelled like hope and new beginnings. A new apartment, bright, with big windows and a balcony where I could read under the stars. Fresh furniture that did not come from secondhand stores or curbside giveaways. I kept it all private. No flashy posts, no big announcements. Just a quiet shifting of my world into something softer, something mine. My mornings changed first. Instead of waking up in a cramped, dim bedroom with peeling paint, I opened my eyes to sunlight pouring through clean windows. I brewed fresh coffee in a kitchen that smelled like cedar and new beginnings. I took long walks in a safe neighborhood where strangers smiled at me instead of looking through me. On weekends, I would sit on my little balcony with a book in hand, my silver SUV parked safely below, feeling a kind of peace I had never known before. No judgmental glances. No cold silences pressing down on me. Just the steady, quiet hum of a life I had built by myself, for myself. It was not about the money. It was about the freedom to breathe without apology, to exist without asking permission. But secrets, as always, have a way of leaking out. I posted a photo on Instagram one evening, just a picture of a sunset, the sky flaming orange behind the silhouette of my new car. I did not even mention the car, but Lyric noticed. She always did.
New car?
Girl, you holding out on us? She texted, followed by a winking emoji. At first, I thought it would end there. A joke, a tease. But within days, the calls started. First, my mom, her voice syrupy sweet, asking vague questions about how I was managing financially. Then my dad mentioning in passing how expensive life had become, and how family supports each other. Evander skipped subtlety entirely. He sent me Zillow links to massive houses with messages like, "This would be perfect for my family." Just saying. When I finally told them haltingly, carefully about the lottery, the shift was immediate. Their voices sharpened. Their words turned heavier. My mom said, "Family sticks together. Surely you'll help your brother and sister." I reminded her gently, as if it mattered that they had just spent thousands traveling Europe without even telling me. She brushed it off like dust. "That was different. This is family money," she said, as if my winnings had always belonged to them. Evander demanded a house for the kids. Lyric hinted that paying off her student loans was the least I could do after everything. Everything meaning what exactly? I was never sure. The weight of their expectations crushed down on me. But this time, I did not fold. I told them about the birthdays they forgot, the spelling bee trophy that disappeared from the shelf like it had never mattered. I told them about the nights I lay awake at 10, 12, 16 years old, wondering why I was never enough to be celebrated the way Evander and Lyric were. I told them about every dinner where my words fell into silence, while Evander's jokes and Lyric's stories were met with laughter and applause. I reminded them of the time they excused Evander missing my birthday, because he was busy, but never forgave me for missing Lyric's recital because I was sick in bed. I reminded them of every photo on the mantel where I stood just slightly to the side, cropped by accident, forgotten by habit. I told them about the overseas trip they planned without me, while I sat alone in a tiny apartment hundreds of miles away, pretending not to care. I told them about how they taught me to expect nothing, to take up less space, to apologize for my own existence. I told them that while they built Evander and Lyric up, brick by brick, I was left to patch my own cracks with silence. And still, after all of that, they had the audacity to demand a share of something they never helped me build. They had the nerve to call it family money when the only thing they had ever truly given me was distance. My father's face turned an ugly shade of red. His fists clenched at his sides like he was holding back every angry word he wanted to hurl at me. My mother's eyes filled with tears, the kind she had never shed for my loneliness, my hurt, my small quiet griefs over the years. Lyric crossed her arms and pouted, her voice rising into that high, sharp tone she always used when things did not go her way. Evander, towering and smug, scoffed openly like I was throwing a tantrum. "We raised you," my mom cried, her voice cracking. Raw. "You raised a ghost," I said, and my voice did not waver. It came out quiet, steady, final. The room seemed to ripple with the words. The shouting started then. They scrambled over each other to rewrite the narrative. Dorian barked that I was being selfish, ungrateful for everything they had sacrificed. Celine wailed about everything we gave you as if the bare minimum counted as love. Evander accused me of being dramatic, bitter, always looking for something to complain about. Lyric cried that I was tearing the family apart. Their words piled over each other. A chorus of guilt and blame, a storm designed to confuse, to wear me down the way it always had when I was younger. And for a split second, I felt it. That old reflex to shrink, to apologize, to beg for their love even if it had to come at the cost of my dignity. But I didn't. Instead, I stood still, rooted to the floor like a mountain against a hurricane. I watched them rage. I watched their faces twist into masks of desperation and fury. I watched their illusions crack and splinter, because for the first time in my life, I refused to carry the weight of their disappointment anymore. I said nothing more. I let their anger echo off the walls, unanswered. When the shouting finally sputtered into a bitter silence, I turned, slow and deliberate, and walked out the door. I didn't slam it, I didn't look back. I simply left, and with every step I took away from that house, I felt lighter, stronger, freer. In the days after, the messages poured in, apologies coded in demands. We miss you. Family means forgiveness. You're being cruel. I blocked them. Not out of hatred, out of necessity. Sometimes I wonder if I will ever forgive them. Maybe when the hurt is not so raw. Maybe when the years weigh heavier on regret than on anger. Forgiveness is not about letting them back in. Forgiveness is about letting myself go free. I am free now, and for the first time in my life, I am enough.